Welcome to the NFL Show on the Gruely True Sports Network. I am your co-host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in from the FF Face-Off, Anthony Servino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, Mike. Just a little bit under the weather, but I'm here and I feeling the best I can.
All right. Let's just start off talking about the best team in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles, who beat the New York Jets 31-6 yesterday. The Jets are a little shorthanded, so to speak. Carson Wentz, 17 for 29, 189 yards, one touchdown. The thing I take away from this is the Eagles did what the Eagles should have done with the Jets, and the Jets just too many injuries, too beat up, and poor coaching.
Yeah, I mean, starting with Adam Gase, I was never an Adam Gase guy. To me, he is still getting jobs off of those Peyton Manning Super Bowls when he was the, quarterback coach or OC in Denver all those years ago. But, I mean, the Jets were banged up everywhere. They haven't had Sam Darnold. They lost Trevor Siemian a quarter into, when he was supposed to be playing. And Luke Falk, really, when you're down to your third quarterback, you have nothing.
Yeah, and
so,
there's a decent chance this game's 31-6, no matter who would have played quarterback for him.
I don't know about that. I think Darnold is a pretty good quarterback. I think
but he's got no offensive line, and that's proven by the fact that Le'Veon Bell can't run the ball. If Le'Veon Bell can't run the ball, I mean, he was 15 carries, 43 yards, and the thing about Bell to me is he's a guy that likes to hesitate, have to let the blockers move the pile ahead a little bit, and make his cuts. He doesn't have that opportunity with this team.
Well, it's not all on Le'Veon Bell. You have to remember, a player like Bell, he was in Pittsburgh for a long time, and their offensive line was used to him, and there's just not that continuity. And, of course, Le'Veon Bell's going to have an issue running the ball when there's absolutely zero threat of a passing attack.
Yeah,
There's zero threat of a passing attack.
Yeah, I'm not blaming Le'Veon Bell. I'm just saying the offensive line, I think, is why, because I think he is a running back that desperately needs a good offensive line to be successful. But, all right, let's move over to the Jaguars and the Panthers. The Carolina Panthers beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-27. Gardner Minshew played well again, 26 for 44, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette ran for over 100 yards. And DJ Shark, 8 receptions, 164 yards. I know they lost this game, but I don't think it's a bad loss. They played tough against what I think is a good Carolina team right now.
Yeah, these are two teams who lost their starting quarterbacks, and really somebody had to lose. But going forward, I think both the Jaguars and the Panthers are going to have success with what they have. Gardner Minshew is the real deal. I don't know about Kyle Allen. I mean, Kyle Allen is winning games. He's winning his starts. But he has a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who I would give the edge of explosiveness over a guy like Leonard Fournette. But with Minshew, the better that Leonard Fournette plays, because he gets better as the season gets older and the more touches he gets, Gardner Minshew is kind of tearing it up out there.
Yeah.
And how do you give Nick Foles the job back?
You don't. I mean, you can't right now unless he's still – I mean, if he's playing well and they're 2-6, you might still give it to Nick Foles. But with all the money given to Nick Foles, you know how this works in the NFL. That owner's probably going to want to see Foles play. But then again, Gardner Minshew makes it so you can trade Nick Foles maybe and have a cheap quarterback that's really good for 3 or 4 years.
But see, there's where I was going to go here. You have an option of one of these two quarterbacks. Is anybody going to take on the Nick Foles contract?
Well, I would
because in theory, the smart way to go is to have somebody on their rookie deal and then build around them.
Yeah, and the thought here is they may just be stuck with him. I would think if you're going to sign Nick Foles, you have to be a team that thinks they have a shot at the playoffs, and the difference is the quarterback.
Chicago Bears.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the perfect match right there, is the Chicago Bears.
I mean, they need a quarterback. They realistically win now with that defense, and if they had a better quarterback, they have quality offensive. They just don't have a ball. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Between James, who I don't think wants to be there, the smart, he's a free agent, I believe, at the end of the year. Trade him now, get a couple of firsts, and then go ahead. You have an asset. You can trade one of your quarterbacks for a high pick. I mean, these Jaguars, they have a good team now. They can really build for the future.
Yeah, and we look at the Carolina Panthers, and Christian McCaffrey, to me, has to be the MVP of this league right now, Anthony.
We're in a league where everybody wants to give it to the quarterback, but look at Patrick Mahomes. He's on pace to throw 15 fewer touchdowns than last year. Mahomes makes outstanding throws, but he's not exactly playing at an MVP level. Christian McCaffrey, with the backup quarterback, he is literally putting up video game numbers every week. He is the reason why the Panthers are winning games right now.
Yeah, he scored 3 touchdowns yesterday, 19 carries for 176 yards, which is over 9 yards per carry. Usually don't see that above Pee Wee football.
McCaffrey has totaled, I believe, 170 yards and a touchdown in 4 out of 5 games this season.
Yeah, and he threw up almost 250 yards and 3 touchdowns yesterday. I don't think we've seen a dual threat running back like this in the NFL since Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, that's great company to be in.
Yeah, one of the greatest running backs ever played the game. And Christian McCaffrey is well on his way to that also. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings beat the New York Giants 28-10. I think this is probably what we expected in this game. Kirk Cousins looks really good against a bad defense. With the Giants, Daniel Jones, 21 for 38, 182 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Giants just, without Saquon Barkley, have no running game. So,
go
ahead.
To their defense, Wayne Gallman left the game right around the first quarter with a concussion or something and did not return. And Gallman's not bad. He's a player, but without Barkley and without your number 2 running back, yeah, you're absolutely right. They had nothing to keep the defense honest. And Minnesota's defense, when they're playing well, they're playing well.
Yeah, and my point to all of that is when you look at Daniel Jones and you consider the circumstances, I don't think it was a horrible performance. They were just playing a really good defense. The Minnesota Vikings are a really good football team. If Kirk Cousins can get out of his own way in big games, Dalvin Cook, 21 carries, 132 yards, but not just him. Alexander Mattison, 7 carries, 52 yards. This Vikings team has some potential here to make a serious run if they could get a little bit more out of Kirk Cousins.
Like I said last week, these wide receivers, they need to kind of keep their mouth shut and win football games the way this team is built to win, which is through Dalvin Cook and now Alexander Mattison and their defense, and protect Kirk Cousins because, Kirk Cousins cannot win a big game, especially by himself. So let Dalvin Cook do it.
Yeah, we look at Houston with the Texans. Deshaun Watson is another guy who I think is vastly underrated because you hear all this stuff about Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. Deshaun Watson, I think, is better than both of them. 28 for 33, 5 touchdowns, 426 yards. They scored 53 points on the Atlanta Falcons. There's a few questions here. And Will Fuller, 14 receptions, 217 yards. If you had him in fantasy, you had a pretty good day. Threw in 3 touchdowns also. This Texas team looked really good offensively. Defense, they gave up 32, but you're going to give up points when you play Matt Ryan. My big takeaway here is, how much longer is Dan Quinn for the Atlanta Falcons job?
Well, if you ask me, and I know you agree, Dan Quinn should be, the head coach of Rutgers yesterday. Because, they're looking for a new head coach.
Why would you wish that on anybody?
I mean, he's a Jersey guy, Dan Quinn. So that's
why
I'm saying
but Rutgers, that's kind of like you're going there to die. I mean, the only guy that's really had any success there the last 50 years was Greg Schiano.
But, you're talking about the Falcons here. Arthur Blank, their owner, has already said, no, we're not making any coaching changes. We believe in the guys that are in there to turn the season around. Maybe they don't make a change now, but there will be a change coming. The Falcons have an issue running the football. Devonta Freeman, he was once a really good player, but injuries, and he's starting to He's 27 years old, but he had multiple knee injuries, I believe. We saw Ito Smith get a season-high 11 touches. Maybe they go back because when Devonta Freeman was at his best, he was splitting time with Tevin Coleman. And this year, they kind of let Devonta Freeman do it all by himself, and he can't. You got to get Ito Smith more involved. But that Falcons defense is terrible. And Deshaun Watson, he had a game like that, and we didn't even talk about DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is having a very quiet season so far. So once he gets going, this Texans team is going to be a force. I'm just worried about the fact that they don't really have a running game. They could really use a quality running back. And they also need a little bit of defensive help because the Honey Badger can't do it all. Oh, no, he's not even there anymore. So, yeah, they really need defensive help in Houston.
All right.
The Honey Badgers in Kansas City.
Yeah, I know, because he was offsides last night. That's why I noticed that. Next up, let's go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who went to New Orleans. The Saints win the game 31-24. I don't think it's so much that the Saints won the game, it's how they won the game. Teddy Bridgewater, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Alvin Kamara, pedestrian, 16 for 62. Doesn't surprise me the Saints won, even though I did think the Bucs may sneak this out. But I think the reason we both thought the Bucs had a legit shot here was because Teddy Bridgewater wasn't that good. That did not look the case to be, or that didn't look to be the case yesterday.
No, Teddy Bridgewater actually set a career high in passing yards and tied a career high with 4 touchdown passes. And this is the Buccaneers defense that looked improved. I just think the Saints have Tampa Bay's number, especially Michael Thomas, who went ballistic yesterday. It wasn't really even close either. Tampa Bay couldn't get anything going offensively, and this Saints defense, just like they played in Seattle, and I brought it up there, they had some turnovers. They scored last week against Dallas. The Saints defense showed up at home, and then this past week against Jameis Winston, 6 sacks. And no, they didn't force a turnover, but Winston couldn't get out of his own way. Mike Evans, 0 catches. Marshawn Lattimore locked down Cooper last week, now Mike Evans. And Lattimore, when he wants to play, is probably the best cover corner in the game.
Yeah, and
when he wants to play.
This is the thing. The offensive line broke down around Winston, but with Winston, 15 for 27, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, though. So I don't think this game falls on him. I think what this game falls on is the Tampa Bay offensive line and the inability to run the ball, Anthony.
They're trying to get a ground game going in Tampa, but between Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber, they're really a two-headed monster. But the Saints are almost as talented as the Eagles, especially at home in stopping the running back.
All right, next up, the Buffalo Bills go to 4-1 with a 14-7 win over the Tennessee Titans. Josh Allen played 23 for 32, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Frank Gore carries the ball 14 times for 60 yards. The Titans, on the other hand, Marcus Mariota, after last week's outstanding performance, was not outstanding again, and this is what we talked about Mariota. He's hit and miss, 13 for 22, 183 yards. Derrick Henry was held to 78 yards, and I think it's time for people to take the Bills seriously because the Bills' defense is as good as almost anybody in the NFL right now.
I think you and I have both taken the Bills seriously, even coming into the season, calling them a surprise wild card team. My issue with Buffalo still is Josh Allen. I mean, he threw that interception, and when I saw that, it's the same old Josh Allen making stupid mistakes. If they can control that, then this Bills team can make a run, and they're winning without Devin Singletary, who did not play last week.
Yeah, and I think the Bills, they're not going to beat out the Patriots, but I think they're a wild card, and I think they're a wild card that could win a playoff game or two. I mean, I think right now, from what I saw, if you were to put them in a playoff game against Kansas City with their defense and Devin Singletary healthy, who knows? I don't think they would win that game just because I think Josh Allen would probably turn the ball over a couple times and shoot themselves in the foot. But I think the Buffalo Bills are to be taken seriously, and if Josh Allen can start to improve, take care of the ball a little bit, that's a team that can make a serious run. All right, next up, the Arizona Cardinals beat the Cincinnati Bengals 26-23. And watching Cliff Kingsbury and Zach Taylor try to coach an NFL football game was similar to, as I put in my article today, trying to watch a man with no legs trying to cross highway traffic. It's amusing for a little bit, but then at the end, that guy's going to die. And this was pathetic. This is the NFL's version of a new offense, I guess. And it was just a bad football game. And most of these points were scored in the fourth quarter. And once again, for Bengal fans that are idiots, if you follow along here, the only reason the Bengals had a chance in this game is because Andy Dalton was outstanding in the second half, 27 for 38, 262 yards. And the big difference here was Joe Mixon, 19 carries, 93 yards, but the majority of those yards were on the first drive where he gained like 50 or 60 yards. So the Bengals' inability to run the ball again, I think, was the difference in this game.
Yeah, and everybody wants to put it on Andy Dalton. I can't put any of it on Andy Dalton because I think he's a very talented quarterback. But the Bengals are just not a very good team right now. I did see a story from Jason La Canfora saying that there are many teams willing to, give up some draft capital for A.J. Green. So if the Bengals are smart, that is a move that they make. I think without A.J. Green going forward, I know you don't like Zach Taylor, but I like the pieces he has to make Andy Dalton go with Auden Tate.
Really?
John Ross
like
next
Auden
season.
Tate? Hold on.
I do like Auden Tate.
Can't catch a cold. I mean, Auden Tate yesterday.
You just don't like anything about
passes.
the Bengals.
Yes,
you just
do.
don't like anything about the
There
Bengals.
are a lot of things I like Andy Dalton.
I can't say anything good about the Bengals.
I like Jesse Bates, Geno Atkins. I like the defensive line. It's not about that. It's about the fact that Auden Tate yesterday on the first drive dropped a touchdown pass that was right in his hands. And before that, he dropped a pass before that. John Ross drops balls. This team needs help. And,
getting help is trading A.J. Green and getting a draft pick and revamping that offensive line.
How about this? What if instead, it doesn't even have to necessarily be a draft pick, but what about a draft pick and an offensive lineman? I mean, for A.J. Green, I think you could see A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert both end up in New England.
Oh, don't even say that.
Well, Tyler Eifert would fit. He's a beat-up tight end who, when he plays, is as good as anybody in the game. And I would love to see the Bengals do that because, really, truthfully, as a Bengals fan, Tyler Eifert and A.J. Green deserve to have a chance to play for a ring.
You mentioned the Bengals and the Cincinnati Bengals and the Patriots do have a history of moving players back and forth. The players just play better in New England.
Yeah, because they're coached better in New England. And that's the other reason why I think this could happen. And A.J. Green in New England, second half of the season, would be very dangerous. I think it would be more dangerous than if Antonio Brown would have got along, because I think A.J. Green runs routes much better. I think he's a much smarter player. And with all the option routes that the Patriots run with their wide receivers, I think A.J. Green could do some major damage alongside Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon and Dante Moncrief.
Well, that's Dante Moncrief.
Philip Dorsett. Sorry. I get my Colts guys mixed up.
You had a Steve Risley moment there. Come on.
Really? Because I could bring up a couple you've already had to show, and I didn't say anything. And Steve's probably listening, and now you've hurt his feelings, so stop.
I don't...
See, and I didn't have a moment. I just forgot a name. I actually knew who was there, though. Next up, we were talking about the New England Patriots. The Patriots started off slow against the Redskins, but ended up winning 33-7. My question to you is this. Sony Michel actually played really well, ran for 91 yards. James White threw up 26 yards. The Patriots, outside of the Bills, have not really played anybody yet. Is that a concern to you, or is this the New England Patriots so you know they're this good no matter who they're playing?
I mean, yes, it is a concern only because, look at the Cowboys, look at the Ravens. When they weren't playing anybody, they were blowing them out, and all of a sudden you put formidable opponents against them, and they don't look as good.
But the Patriots did beat the Bills.
Okay. Josh, they had Matt Barkley in for half that game.
They still won. And it wasn't half the game. It was the
fourth quarter. And here's my issue. The glaring thing that I can take away that the Washington Redskins did, and if you probably go back to every other game, Tom Brady's getting hit more than I've seen Tom Brady get hit.
Yeah.
So that's a concern when you're going up against, maybe the Bills get their way next time. Look at these other defenses that they have to play.
Yeah, but in the AFC, how many defenses are like that can do anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. In the AFC.
I mean, in the AFC, you got Buffalo. Who else is really good defensively that gets after the quarterback?
Tennessee.
Yeah, but Tennessee's probably not going to be in the playoffs anyways. I would think this. I would think a dangerous team for the Patriots, and this may sound crazy, would be the Houston
Colts?
Texans. I think
Why?
the Texans are more dangerous because
Why?
think
Because they can put up points.
They can put up points, and you're rolling with J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless. I think, and we'll get to the Colts game in a little bit, but that Colts team, they were playing the Chiefs, who are one-dimensional. And the Patriots, no matter what you say about them, they tend to usually run for over 100 yards every game. So it's not like you can line up and just play smash mouth, keep away from Tom Brady if you're the Colts, if you're playing the Patriots. Because the other thing is this, the Chiefs' defense is terrible against the run, especially between the tackles. The Patriots are not. So if you try to play the Patriots like that, you're going to have to be more successful in the air than what I think Jacoby Brissett could be. I think Deshaun Watson is immeasurably better than Jacoby Brissett, and we'll have Sam Teets on Wednesday, and I think Deshaun Watson right now should be in the top 6 or 7 at worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
Worst?
No, I mean, at worst, he should be in the top 6 or 7.
No, I like Deshaun Watson a lot, actually.
And he's doing it without any offensive line in front of him.
No, he's a playmaker, and he's also a winner. I like the intangibles that he brings, and I think that's overlooked when it comes to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
That he's a hell of a leader.
Yeah, he played with broken ribs last year. I mean, he's a tough guy. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens, 26-23 with the Pittsburgh Steelers in overtime. And I think this goes to show us that competition does matter. And the Pittsburgh competition is not that good. Their defense is not that good. And Lamar Jackson still threw 3 interceptions. And I will still go back to the same thing. I am not convinced about anything on Lamar Jackson other than the fact that he can run really fast.
Well, yeah, now, I bought into Jackson the first couple of weeks, but now I'm really starting to see that there are issues here. Maybe issues with the way Baltimore is calling their offense. I will give the Steelers defense more credit than you, but to throw 3 interceptions and for the game to be going into overtime when the Steelers were down to their third quarterback, that shouldn't happen if you're really like a playoff team that can make a run.
What I'll give you for the Steelers is this.
Mark Ingram on that offense, Mark Ingram, he's having he had a big 2 or 3 games, and now, he's 30 years old. He may be starting to slow down. Maybe you start spelling in a Justice Hill or a Gus Edwards, but they need to establish a running game.
Yeah, and I think the thing I take away from the Steelers is I've never been a big Mike Tomlin fan. I don't think he's a great X's and O's coach or game manager. But the one thing I will give him is this. His guys play hard for him, and they played hard for him yesterday. You had Devlin Hodges, who I think played at Samford last year. Not Stanford, but Samford. Not Sanford and Son, but Samford.
Oh.
And he came out. He goes 7 for 9, 68 yards. Mason Rudolph almost died at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. And
that was scary. That was
yeah.
Scary to look at.
Yeah.
That was very emotional.
Yeah, and the thing I take away from this, though, is this. The Pittsburgh Steelers, as long as they have Mike Tomlin, they're going to be in the fight, if you know what I mean. Their team's not very good. They're probably only going to win 4 to 6 games this year, but they're going to be in every one of those games for the most part.
Are the Steelers a team that could potentially make a move? Do you see anybody making a move for Eli Manning or –
Right now, if you're the Steelers and you make a move for Eli Manning, you're stupid because the move maybe should be for Nick Foles.
Yeah, but are you going to get Nick Foles back this year? Or is it going to be too late?
I don't know. If you get Nick Foles back, 3 or 4 weeks, it's probably too late. See, no, I wouldn't screw with Eli Manning. Right now, you got a bunch of young quarterbacks. See who can play. You're not winning anything even with Eli Manning.
That division is up for hell. The Bengals could go on a run and win it.
No, they can't. They can't. There's nobody that can beat left on their schedule.
But it's that close.
Miami.
There's no glaring team. There is no team that's jumping out. It's like the AFC South.
I
Anybody
disagree.
can win that.
I disagree, though. The AFC South, you all have at least average teams. The only team that we have in the AFC North, Baltimore might be average. Cleveland's going to win the division. I mean, Cleveland is the only team there that could win the 9 or 10 games, which will make them the division winner. They're still not very good, but I think there really is a big difference between Cleveland and everybody else. And I think we saw that by the fact that they pretty much pushed Baltimore around in Baltimore last week.
No, I'll tell you the biggest issue in Baltimore, and it's not Lamar Jackson. I think the defensive pieces that they lost, the leadership in Terrell Suggs,
Yep.
and look at what Zadarius Smith last year in Baltimore had a breakout year, and now look what he's doing. I mean, he almost single-handedly shut down Dallas yesterday.
Yeah, and I think it all begins and ends with the Terrell Suggs, because it's one thing to lose some players that are important. It's another thing to lose the guy that was probably the leader in your locker room and on the field. And another team that lost that last year.
And C.J. Mosley.
Yeah.
So your three starting linebackers are gone.
Yeah. So I think Baltimore's cooked. I think they'll stick around just because they get to play the Bengals and the Steelers again, which will give them a couple more wins. I think Cleveland's going to run away with that division, and I think they could run away with it at 9-7. Next up, the Oakland Raiders, 24 to Chicago Bears, 21. Chase Daniel, 22 for 30, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But the thing that stood out to me is this, and I said it at the start, that I didn't think the Bears would make the playoffs. I thought they could be a last-place team in the NFC North because losing Jordan Howard would kill them. And I think it has. Yesterday, David Montgomery, 11 carries for 25 yards. Tariq Cohen, 10 yards. They could not run the ball. And that's against the Oakland Raiders, who I don't think anybody thinks is a great defense. If you can't run the ball and your quarterback play is average at best, you're not going to win in the NFL, especially when the other team has a really good quarterback and Joshua Jacobs running for 123 yards.
Yeah, that was big. Josh Jacobs having a game like he did against that vaunted Chicago Bears defense. Khalil Mack couldn't do it all. And I think the biggest difference in yesterday's game was Roquan Smith. He didn't play for personal reasons. And I actually said on my show, if you're a fantasy guy, you want to put Josh Jacobs in because of Roquan Smith's absence. I didn't have the balls to pick Oakland, but I kind of had a gut feeling they would pull that game out. And they did. And they did it without Tyrell Williams, who has scored, the wide receiver who has scored in every game so far he's played.
Well,
but the Raiders, let me tell you, that they're pretty sneaky. I think the best thing that happened to them was losing Antonio Brown, because he was a locker room cancer, and I think the team is rallying behind Carr.
I think this. I think the whole difference in this game was Derek Carr. It doesn't matter what his stats are. The only stat that matters here is the number under INT against the Bears, because we also talked about this at the start of the year, where I said the reason the Bears were so good last year was what? They intercepted almost 30 passes in one season. And what we've seen is when they don't get those interceptions, they don't get those turnovers, they're not good enough offensively to drive the length of a field. They need short fields off of turnovers.
Absolutely.
And they're not getting that. This Bears team is not that good because skill position-wise they're not that good. The quarterback's not that good. You don't have a Jordan Howard that's going to grab the ball 20, 25 times and run for 100.
And by the way, Jordan Howard scored in 3 straight games for Philadelphia.
Yeah, because Jordan Howard is a hell of a running back that gets overlooked. And I think that Matt Nagy will someday, soon, when he's sitting around looking for another job, he's going to wonder, why the hell did I get rid of Jordan Howard? Why didn't I just change my offense to suit Jordan Howard? Because Matt Nagy will lose his job within the next 2 or 3 years because he picked Mitchell Trubisky and he got rid of Jordan Howard.
I think that's the thing with fantasy football that I don't like, even though I'm well entrenched with it, is that a player like Jordan Howard does fly under the radar because he's just your downhill running back. He can't do it all. He's not the Christian McCaffrey that's going to, be on the highlights. And Jordan Howard doing it in Philadelphia, and since they've committed to him more in the past 3 games, takes the pressure off of Wentz, and Philly's winning.
Yeah, and if they continue to be committed to him, I think you get to watch them in the Super Bowl again this year. Because I think we saw it last night with the Colts Chiefs, which we'll get to in a minute or so. The way football was played 20, 30 years ago is still the way it should be played. Next up, the Denver Broncos upset the Los Angeles Chargers 20-13. The game really wasn't that close. It was 17-0 at halftime. The Broncos controlled the flow of the game. Joe Flacco played just well enough to win. Philip Lindsay, I think, and Royce Freeman were the stars here as they combined for like 175 yards rushing and almost 6 yards per carry. This was an impressive display by a Broncos team that had been nowhere near impressive up until yesterday.
Yeah, Denver, everybody had them dead in the water. And, last week, even though they lost, Joe Flacco had his best game of the year. He comes back with another strong game. Those two running backs in Denver are very underrated. Everybody thought that it was going to be Eckler and Melvin Gordon going off, but it was the Denver backs who got the job done. And Cortland Sutton, a second-year player or third-year player, he's now coming to his own. He's scoring. He seems to be Joe Flacco's top target. So I'm not going to say Denver's going to go on a run or anything, but they're not going to be as bad as they've played.
Yeah, and I don't think the Chargers are going to end up being as good as people thought they were either.
And a little bit of news out of Denver is that they are not expected to trade Von Miller, even though that there are changes coming to that team.
Yeah. Well, winning a game can change some minds. See if they win two. If they lose the next one, they might want to trade him again. But I don't see much in the way of a good outlook for the Chargers the rest of the season either. I know you got Melvin Gordon back, but
the issue with the Chargers is in the years past, and I've said this a few times this year, not only do they start slow, but they also deal with a ton of injuries. And in the past, Phillip Rivers was able to overcome it. Phillip Rivers is getting up there in age, and he can't afford to overcome losing players like Mike Williams in and out of the lineup with back and knee injuries. Hunter Henry missing all of last season, and now, who knows if he's going to return this year. Melvin Gordon sitting out for a month, and now it's going to take him a couple of games to get back into it. The defense lost a bunch of pieces, including Derwin James, who might be the best young safety in the NFL. So, yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Chargers.
All right, next up, I hate to do this, Anthony, since you're sick, but the Green Bay Packers beat the Dallas Cowboys 34-24 in a game that wasn't as close as that score would indicate either, I don't think. Aaron Rodgers, 238 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But Aaron Jones, 19 carries, 107 yards, 4 touchdowns. The thing I take away from this here is, number one, Aaron Jones ran the ball well. Ezekiel Elliott, 12 carries, 62 yards. I know they fell behind big early, which is why they probably went away from that a little bit. But Dak Prescott, 27 for 44, 463 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Amari Cooper had a great game, 226 yards receiving. But there was some major defensive issues in this game for the Cowboys, and the Cowboys' offensive line got pretty much owned by the Packers.
Well, yeah, Dallas was already down 2 starters on the line going into the game, and when you have to deal with a Zadarius Smith and a Preston Smith on either side, you have to game plan better for that pass rush. The first interception was off of Amari Cooper's arm, and that was a big momentum shift because Dallas was actually having their way. They had the ball impact over the 50-yard line 6 or 7 times without scoring a point. The Green Bay defense really stepped up. And on the Cowboys side, and I kind of felt this way last year in the playoff game against the Rams when C.J. Anderson was running all over Dallas. You got to get Sean Lee out of the game. I understand that you like Sean Lee, and he's a good locker room guy, but what he is, Sean Lee is a coach. He helped coach up Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, but I don't think Sean Lee is still that player you think he is, and he shouldn't be on the field because he is costing Dallas some plays.
Yeah, so I think it also goes back to the point that...
And Dallas needs a nose tackle, desperately.
Yeah, and the Cowboys, are they still a Super Bowl contender, Anthony?
I think they'll right the ship. They're still 3-2. They lost 2, last week against the Saints. Okay, this one was kind of bad. I think they'll right the ship. Maybe they go and make a move for a piece, maybe a nose tackle, but I'm not going to say it's over yet because you are playing in the NFC East, and Carson Wentz isn't the most durable guy. Anything can happen. We're only 5 weeks in.
Okay. I think you're screwed. But unless Carson Wentz gets hurt, then you got a chance. I still think Jason Garrett's the coach, and as long as he's the coach, they'll always have problems in games against better teams.
I tell you, I want to call out the Cowboys. They have the worst home field advantage.
They don't have
because
a home field advantage.
In the first 3 quarters, if the Cowboys aren't winning, they're dead quiet. And then as soon as in the fourth quarter, when they start moving the football, then you couldn't hear a pin drop. Then it was loud. Where are you for the? You need to give this team a home field advantage because they don't have one.
From the pictures I saw, though, to have a home field advantage, Cowboys fans would have to be in the seats, and it looks like there was as many, if not more, Green Bay Packer fans there yesterday.
Well, they do travel well.
And well, not just that though, but when they played the 49ers, what was that last year? Or the year before, there was more 49er fans in there than there was Dallas because I know Matt Andrews-Scavage, who does the NFL Pick'em show with us, sent pictures of it, and it looked like they were in San Francisco playing the game. So I think there's issues there also. But the Cowboys are dead. Stick a fork in them. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts, 19-13 over the Kansas City Chiefs. Jacoby Brissett, 18 for 29, 151 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. But the offensive line was amazing running the ball. Marlon Mack, 29 carries for 132 yards. And I think it's the same thing that I've said all year about the Chiefs. I don't consider them a Super Bowl team because they don't run the ball and they don't stop the run. And what we saw the Colts do was drop back to like 1965 and just bludgeon them into submission.
Yeah, you bring up a great point that the Chiefs can't run the ball. And I think we saw that a little bit last year when they lost Kareem Hunt. Their offense changed dramatically. And now into this season, they don't have Eric Fisher, their tackle. And we're seeing Patrick Mahomes get hit a lot. He tweaked his ankle for the second time this season. There's no Tyreek Hill. I think the Chiefs have holes. And on their defense, forget about it. I brought up the Honey Badger. He's the only real legitimate piece they have. I know they traded for a pass rusher from Seattle. And I don't know if it's Frank Clark, his name.
Yeah,
I'm drawing a blank. But
Frank
where
Clark.
the hell has he been? Where has Chris Jones been? Their other pass rusher. They need to get something going in Kansas City because, when a team like the Colts can come into your house and come out with a win, there's issues, and they won without Darius Leonard, who's a tackling machine.
Yeah, and they were missing more than that. Malik Hooker wasn't there. That's a big piece of the secondary. That's why I didn't think they had a chance coming into the game. But the one thing I will give Frank Reich is this. He's not a 12-year-old like Opie Taylor or Cliff Kingsbury, and he had no problem with just manning up and running the ball down their throat. And the one advantage Andy Reid has is there's not many coaches that will do that anymore. And what we've seen with Andy Reid in the past, whether it was in Philadelphia or in Kansas City, he never runs the ball enough, and his teams usually don't stop the run that well. And that's what bites his ass in the playoffs, and that's why he's only had one Super Bowl appearance, even though he's been to the playoffs 700 times. So the other one here, the other issue is Colts defensive end Kimiko Ture broke his ankle in the win last night. He will be out for the rest of the season. So there's issues in Indianapolis, and they're not going to get to play teams that are so that you can just do one thing against. And I still think the Colts are not going to get out of the AFC South. I still think that the Texans are going to win the South.
Yeah, I'm not going to count the Colts out just yet.
I'm not counting them out. I'm just saying with all the injuries, and you play the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson's pretty good. And Deshaun Watson can beat you more than one way, and they can run the ball a little, but they can definitely stop the run. And I still don't think that against a team that can slow the run down, I still not convinced Jacoby Brissett is the guy to get it done in that situation.
Well, Brissett doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and that's what he has going in his favor.
Yeah, but as long as they're running the ball, he's not going to turn the ball over a lot because he's not really going to be forced to do anything. My question is, does he turn the ball over when he faces a team that stops him? But we'll see in the future. And it's not just so much that. Still, if you want to go to the Super Bowl with a team like the Colts, you can't just be a game manager at the end. You've got to be able to make a play at the end of the game because it's not like you have a dominant defense. So I still think he's got to be able to make plays to be able to get them over the hump. Tonight, Monday Night Football, the Cleveland Browns against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are one of just two teams that are undefeated now in the NFL. Cleveland's coming off a huge 40-25 win over the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. So, will Baker Mayfield flourish or be flustered against the 49ers pass rush tonight, Anthony?
I think it's going to be a really competitive game. I could see it being a 3-point swing going in either direction, but I actually think the Cleveland Browns are going to continue their win streak because the 49ers, they're 3-0, but they're another team we don't know if they've played anyone yet. Their best competition so far has been Tampa Bay, and Jimmy Garoppolo turns the ball over. If Jimmy Garoppolo turns the ball over 5 times, 3 times, they're going to lose.
I'm going to say this. I think the 49ers defense will shut down the run. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I like San Francisco because I think San Francisco's defensive front will be in Baker Mayfield's face all day long, and I think that will lead Mayfield to maybe throw a couple he shouldn't to get caught by the 49ers. Garoppolo scares me, though. That's why I think this game is close. I would call this game a toss-up. I would lean slightly to the 49ers because I think the 49ers have a more complete team.
This is going to be, I think this is an Odell Beckham Jr. game. He's been quiet in the past few. It's prime time, and I just have that feeling OBJ goes for over 100 and scores once or twice.
Well, remember this, though. Cleveland's offensive line is not very good. San Francisco's offensive line so far this year has only given up 2 sacks. I think this game for San Francisco to be able to score points, the biggest question is, can San Francisco's offensive line contain Myles Garrett?
Yeah, and they don't have Joe Staley, so that's going to be a big test.
That's why I bring that up, because I think if they can block Myles Garrett, I think they win the game. If they don't, I think this game could be a turnover fest. It's won 13-10 by whichever team has the ball at the end, kicking the field goal. So I think this is a very interesting game, though, and I think it should be a high-quality game tonight. I just think it's going to be low-scoring. So that's all I got about that. Anything else you want to talk about, Anthony?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. And I brought up that the Steelers are expected to start Devlin Hodges in Week 6.
Now, let me ask you this. That's funny. I wish the Bengals played him, but they would make him look like a Pro Bowler. Earl Thomas, should he be suspended for the hit?
Yeah, right? Because, he went in with his helmet.
So is that a yes?
Yes.
I don't think he should. I think he barely got him. He got him with the shoulder pad in the helmet, it looked like to me. But I think he hit the strike zone high. I mean,
Earl Thomas is a veteran safety. I don't know. To me, some of the veterans should know a little bit better. They know how to play within the rules.
Well, all right. I don't think he should be suspended, though. I don't think he should be fined. He got a 15-yard penalty. Stuff happens. It's football. It's violent. But, all right. So my takeaway, my hero of the week to me is Frank Reich. I think the game plan he came up with to beat Kansas City is what everybody should attempt to do. Anthony?
No, you're absolutely right. And, again, he did that relatively short-handed on both sides of the football.
Yeah. So you want to tell everybody where they can find the FF Face-Off with you and Mike Hoff?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. You can follow the show at the FF Face-Off. And you can get us anywhere you can get a podcast, as well as live video streams on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope.
All right, guys. You can follow me at Grilling Truth on Twitter. We're all over the place. Go join our group on Facebook. I think I just lost Anthony. You still there,
No,
Anthony?
I'm still here.
All right.
Yeah, I just got back.
It sounded funky on there. But also, we will give the live call-in number again for people starting tomorrow because we do know it works now. So we're going to wrap the show up. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Tune in. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Servino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.